I'm reading 1 Corinthians 13, 1 through 13. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we only see a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love.
52 years ago, tomorrow, this beautiful young woman said, "I do," and repeated some vows, and she meant them. That's the best part about it. It's a good reminder that building a lifetime marriage takes focus and work, a lot of work. By nature, men and women are vastly different. It's almost like it's God's sense of humor shown when he made Adam, took one of his ribs and made Eve, and then married them to each other. I can imagine he stood back and laughed thinking, oh, this is going to be fun watching this now. It's really easy to misunderstand each other when we face serious challenges. And sometimes that leads to tensions and hurt and alienation. There was a movie that was released in 1970, the year we got married, called Love Story. I know Brenda loved it. It was one of those chick flicks that guys hated and women loved. The most famous line from it is one of the most famous, it's in the top 10 famous lines from any movie, and maybe you can repeat it after me. Love means never having to say you're sorry. The fact of it is, that is not true, and that love means having to say you're sorry, and to say it often. Women are a mystery to us husbands. And men make little sense to women. I came upon this list, 100 reasons it's great to be a guy. I'm not going to read all of them to you, but I picked a few. Maybe they will help you ladies to understand us better, and most likely they will simply confirm your prejudices about us. Phone conversations are over in 30 seconds flat. You know stuff about cars, guns, and tanks. A 7-day vacation requires only one suitcase. You can open your own jars. Old friends don't give you a hassle if you've lost or gained weight. You don't have to lug a bag of useful stuff around everywhere you go. You can go to the toilet without a support group. You can leave a hotel bed unmade. You can kill your own food. The garage is all yours. You get extra credit for the slightest act of thoughtfulness. Wedding plans take care of themselves. If someone forgets to invite you to something, he or she can still be your friend. That one may come from men's prejudices about women. None of your co-workers has the power to make you cry. You don't have to shave below your neck. You can write your name in the snow. 3 pairs of shoes is more than enough. Michael Bolton does not live in your universe. You can admire Clint Eastwood without starving yourself to look like him. Gray hair and wrinkles add character. Wedding dress, $2,000. Suit rental, $75. Need I say more? If you retain water, it's in a bucket. The remote is yours and yours alone. You can drop by to see a friend without bringing a little gift. And if another guy shows up at the party in the same outfit, you might become lifelong friends. As I was putting this together, I realized that I've been domesticated. Some of those things used to be true about me, but not anymore. I can't remember the last time that I wrote my name in the snow. I guess it's not such a bad thing. Still, we don't always understand each other, and it can cause some clashes. Years ago, Brenda and I came upon this little skit, and some of you have heard it before, but we enjoy it so much, anybody who's new around here gets to hear it. We heard it performed by Garrison Keillor, but I guess it was actually written by the humorist Dave Barry. So come on up, Brenda, and let's read through this. Let's say a guy named Roger is attracted to a woman named Elaine. He asked her out to a movie. She accepts. They have a pretty good time. A few nights later, he asked her to go out to dinner. And again, they enjoy themselves. They continue to see each other regularly, and after a while, neither one of them is seeing anybody else. And then one evening, when they're driving home, a thought occurs to Elaine, and without really thinking, she says it aloud.
Do you realize that as of tonight, we've been seeing each other for exactly 6 months?
And then there's silence in the car.
To Elaine, it sounds like a very loud silence. She thinks to herself, gee, I wonder if it bothers him that I said that. Maybe he's been feeling confined by our relationship. Maybe he thinks I'm trying to push him into some kind of obligation that he doesn't want or isn't sure of. And Roger, oh, you didn't highlight that on mine. And Roger is thinking,
so that means it was, let's see.
no, skip.
Oh, Roger's thinking, gosh, 6 months.
And Elaine is thinking, but hey, I'm not sure I want this kind of relationship either. Sometimes I wish I had a little more space so I'd have time to think about whether I really want to keep this thing going the way it's been moving and moving steadily toward, where are we going? Are we just going to keep seeing each other on this level? Are we headed toward marriage, toward children, toward a lifetime together? Am I really ready for that kind of commitment? Do I really even know this person?
And Roger's thinking, so that means it was, let's see, February when we started going out, which was right after I had the car at the dealer's, which means, let me check the odometer. Whoa, I'm way overdue for an oil change.
And Elaine is thinking, he's upset. I can see it on his face. Maybe I'm reading this completely wrong. Maybe he wants more from our relationship, more intimacy, more commitment. Maybe he has sensed even before I sensed it that I was feeling some reservations. Yes, I bet that's it. That's why he's so reluctant to say anything about his own feelings. He's afraid of being rejected. And Roger's thinking,
and I'm going to have them look at the transmission again. I don't care what those morons say, it's still not shifting right. And they better not try to blame it on the cold weather this time. What cold weather? It's 87 degrees and this thing is shifting like a garbage truck. And I paid those incompetent thieves $600.
And Elaine is thinking, he's angry. And I don't blame him. I'd be angry too. I feel so guilty putting them through this, but I can't help the way I feel. I'm not sure.
And Roger's thinking, they'll probably say it's only a 90-day warranty, those scumballs.
And Elaine is thinking, maybe I'm just too idealistic waiting for a knight coming to ride on his white horse when I'm sitting right next to a perfectly good person, a person I enjoy being with, a person I truly do care about, a person who seems to truly care about me, a person who is in pain because of my self-centered schoolgirl romantic fantasy.
And Roger's thinking, warranty? They want a warranty? I'll give them a warranty. I'll take their warranty and stick it...
Roger?
What?
Please don't torture yourself like this, she says with her eyes brimming with tears. Maybe I should never have... Oh, I feel so...
What?
I'm such a fool. I mean, I know there's no knight. I really know that. It's silly. There's no knight and there's no horse.
There's no horse?
You think I'm a fool, don't you?
No, says Roger, glad to finally know the correct answer.
It's just that. It's that I need some time.
There's a 15-second pause while Roger, thinking as fast as he can, tries to come up with a safe response. Finally comes up with one that he thinks might work. Yes.
Elaine, deeply moved, touches his hand. Oh, Roger, do you really feel that way?
What way?
That way about time.
Oh, yes.
Elaine turns to face him and gazes deeply into his eyes, causing him to become very nervous about what she might say next, especially if it involves a horse. And at last she speaks. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you. Then he takes her home, and she lies on her bed, a conflicted, tortured soul, and weeps until dawn. When Roger gets back to his place, he opens a bag of Doritos, turns on the TV, and immediately becomes deeply involved in a rerun of a tennis match between two Czechoslovakians he's never heard of. A tiny voice in the far recesses of his mind tells him that something major was going on back there in the car, but he's pretty sure there's no way he will ever understand what, and so he figures it's better if he just doesn't think about it.
The next day, Elaine will call her closest friends, or perhaps two of them, and they will talk about this situation for 6 straight hours. In painstaking detail, they will analyze everything she said, everything he said, going over it time and time again, exploring every word, expression, and gesture of nuances for meaning, considering every possible ramification. They will continue to discuss this subject on and off for weeks, maybe months. They never reach any definite conclusions, but never getting bored with it either.
Meanwhile, Roger, while playing racquetball one day with a mutual friend of his and Elaine's, will pause just before serving, frown, and say, "Norm, did Elaine ever own a horse?"
And that's the difference between men and women.
That's why we've got to have a lot of patience and forgiveness for each other if we're going to make it. The Apostle Paul writes something in Colossians chapter 3 that I want us to read. It starts with verse 12, and he says, "Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive whatever grievances you may have against one another. Forgive as the Lord forgave you, and over all these virtues put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity." Now, this was written to a church, not to a married couple, but it definitely applies to marriage and to every other relationship in life. And if you think about it, the church is a perfect workshop for learning to love. People from diverse backgrounds, different interests, different opinions, different genders, coming together with a bond that transcends our self-interests. Because we have a role in helping each other get to heaven. And so there is something higher that calls us together. And this creates the necessity that we learn to get along. And so it's a great place for us to learn and strengthen our love muscles. But it's also a place where we can misunderstand, feel neglected, and become resentful. And so that's why we're called to love and forgive. Many, many times I tell married couples or pre-married couples in our marriage prep, don't try to change each other, but instead grow into the person you want your spouse to be. And so grow into the person you want your fellow church member to be. Grow into the person you want your child to be. The more we try to leverage people and twist their arms and cajole them into changing, the more they resist. But the more we lead by example, an example that is worth following, the more people will change. Because they'll say, that is a better way than what I've been doing. Let's pick this apart a little bit. He says, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness. Yeah. One more. There we go. Step back. I was going to step back too far. The remote is all mine. To use and to misuse. That's the problem with having power. It's easy to misuse it and to go one step too far ahead. He says, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. It's much easier to live with a person who has these characteristics. The New International Version says, clothe yourselves. Most other translations say, put on compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. So I looked up the word. It's the Greek word enduo. And Strong's definition says it means to clothe or be clothed with in the sense of sinking into a garment. Now that creates a visual image. It's like putting a big coat on or a big sweater on. You put it on and it just sort of envelops you. It wraps all the way around you. It becomes who you are. You're warm and cozy inside of it. And that is the sense of this word when he says to put these things on or be clothed in them. It's also used in Galatians chapter 3, verse 27. We're talking about something else, but in the same vein, Paul says, for all of you who were baptized into Christ have clothed yourselves with Christ. He has become wrapped around us. So when the Father looks at us, he doesn't see our sin, our faultiness, but he sees the righteousness of his Son. We've been clothed in Christ. And so we're called not to just dabble in compassion and kindness and humility and gentleness and patience, but to be covered with them, to be identified with them. You know, if you're shopping someplace, one of those stores that is way too big, and you've gone one direction and your wife has gone the other direction, most likely you've gone to the cosmetics section, your wife went to look at car parts. Well, wait a minute, maybe it was the opposite of that. Anyways, you lose track of each other, and so sometimes I've spent 15 or 20 minutes looking for Brenda. And she's not hiding. Usually she's looking for me, and we go the wrong directions. But sometimes you'll stop and say, have you seen my wife? Well, describe her. Well, she was wearing a blue dress. Because that's what people notice, first of all, that outward stuff. And so, what if your wife is trying to find you in a store, and she says, have you seen my husband? He's the guy who's covered with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Oh, yeah, I ran into that guy. He's right over there. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't it be great if when your wife is talking about you to a new friend, she describes you that way? That doesn't always happen, I know, because we are who we are, guys, aren't we? And then he goes on and says, bear with each other and forgive whatever grievances you may have against one another. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. Love means having to say you're sorry. And it means lots of forgiveness. Many relationships fail because of lingering resentment that was never resolved. And it festers and it corrodes until that bond is no longer there and there is a lack of feeling, or maybe it is so much that the feeling of hurt is so intense that you have to cover it over somehow. You can't live with it active all the time. And so you numb yourself to it, and that ends up, I feel nothing. Those hurts, resentments have to be dealt with, whether it's within the church or within a marriage. And so the hurt one must learn to say, I know what this will do to our relationship. I need you to realize that you hurt me, and I need to forgive you, or it will fester into fatal anger. I know myself, and I know that's what will happen. Now, when we gain that level of self-awareness and the courage to be able to say those things, that's the start. And honestly, ladies, sometimes you tell us those things, but you tell us in a way that we don't understand them. Or you tell us in such a way that we become overwhelmed by them, and so we shut down and we won't talk. But we need to hear it. And I don't know, maybe you need to do an intervention. You need to stand between us and the TV while the Super Bowl's on and say, I'm turning this thing off if you don't listen to me. And you say, I don't care about the Super Bowl. Okay, between us and the NASCAR race. Oh, you don't watch NASCAR. Us and the golf match. I don't know what it is. Us and the hunting show. There's something. We do that with kids, don't we? You find the point of leverage. If your kid loves to play video games and they misbehave, what do? You ground them for the video game for a day. And then they need psychological counseling after that because, that's just too much. That's child abuse. You find out where there's leverage. What do you really love? I'm going to deprive you of it. You can't go outside and play with your friends, whatever it is. And so you got to find the point of leverage without being nasty, but being strategic. And by the way, guys, it wouldn't hurt if we would say, I know something's wrong. No doubt I did something really bad, and I don't know what it is. I don't want to do it again. I don't ever want to do it again. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to put my armored vest on, and I want you to tell me. And it's going to hurt me, and I'm going to deny it, and I'm going to be defensive. I know that because I know me, but I need to hear it. And so she tells you, and you say, I didn't want to hear that. And you think it through. And at first, you want to find a way to say it was her fault. But instead of doing that, you keep your mouth shut. and you let it sink in, and you think about it, and you pray about it, and you come back the next day saying, you know, I get it. You're right. Help me to not do that again. It takes lots of forgiveness. It takes lots of bearing with one another. One translation of this is long-suffering. Boy, that is descriptive, isn't it? And you think, when you first meet, when you first have that spark of romance, and you say, you get to a point, like a tipping point, and you say, I don't really want to live the rest of my life without you. In fact, I see you in my life from now on. I want to be married to you. You're not thinking of these things in the future where the resentments come. But if you grow together, you're going to encounter those things. And if you don't deal with them, then you're going to start distancing yourselves from each other. Because when you have a guy who's been thinking about when the last oil change took place, and a girl who's analyzing their relationship in minute details, trying to make sense of every non-statement, well, misunderstandings and offenses will happen. This little section that I brought to you this morning from Colossians, it ends with this statement. He says, and over all these things, over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. Boy, that says it, doesn't it? Just like the very ending of 1 Corinthians 13 that Lisa did such a great job reading this morning, even though I forgot to tell her she was going to do it. And so she did it last minute. Lisa, who, 3 or 4 years ago, would never read Scripture in a Bible class. She was too nervous and fearful of doing it. It ends by saying, so faith and hope and love remain. But the greatest of these is football. No, help me. The greatest of these is, And when you think about it, when we get to heaven, you won't need faith anymore. You won't need hope. You'll be in the presence of God. It doesn't take faith to be there. Hope is the anticipation of a promise being fulfilled. All of God's promises will be fulfilled when you're there. But love will remain. And by the way, let's wind back a little bit. In 1 Corinthians 13, that section between verses 4 and 8, where Paul defines love. He says love is patient. It's kind, it's not envious, it's not boastful, not proud, not rude, not self-seeking, not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. It does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. That is what love is. And I'm so grateful that we serve a God who loves us that way. And that came in flesh and showed us from a human point of view what that kind of love means. He loved us enough to redeem us by his own death. And that redemption caused him to overcome death and show us the way to overcome death. I'm so grateful for that. And so I think we can learn to love each other too, more perfectly every day.